Hey guys, I remember searching for this information at the start of my mixed media journey and just not finding the answers that work for me. So I thought I'd share the technique that I use and how I personally apply collage. As with all my videos, I always highly recommend experimenting to find out what works for you. This is just what I do. I'm going to share what I use, give some tips, and take you through my process. Timestamps and links to any materials are in the description. Let's get into it. So first I have a brush for applying the adhesive. The adhesive I use is a matte medium, so I'll go into why and what alternative you could try later on in the video. Then I have this applicator tool, so this is called a catalyst wedge from Princeton. You can just literally use an old credit card, make sure it's an old one that you don't use anymore, or like a gift card or something. You can also just use your fingers. So this is basically to help get rid of any bubbles and make sure that the collage is firmly attached. Then an optional material is heavy structure gel or modelling paste. I'll share why in a bit. Onto the surface then. So my favourite surfaces are wooden panel or canvas. You can also use paper. I recommend thicker papers like mixed media paper or watercolour paper. It needs to hold the glue and obviously all the layers that you're going to be putting down. It's important that the surface is flat. So I like to collage over acrylic paint, for example, that's had time to cure, but I would never collage over thick paint or a rough surface. It just increases the chance of getting bubbles and makes things much harder to work with. Then I have my collage pieces here. I have a selection of patterns, colours, words. I prefer papers with a matte surface and not glossy because I like to paint on top. I love collage because you can collect interesting scraps for your art, things like books, tickets, menus, music sheets, tissue paper. There's endless possibilities and it adds such a cool dimension to a piece of art, kind of like a hidden gem underneath the surface. So one of my favourites is to use the paper towel I use for wiping excess paint off my brush. I find it quite beautiful. It looks like a little mini work of art in itself sometimes. As for the size of the collage pieces, I like it not too large, like roughly no larger than my hand. I also like a range of sizes to add intrigue and variation. I have noticed that thinner collage pieces tend to bubble a bit more, just something to bear in mind. However, because I'm using matte medium as the adhesive, I don't want papers too thick either. So if you prefer heavier weight paper for your collage, I've heard other artists using gel medium instead. Apparently you can get a slightly thicker coating. It's worth experimenting with your adhesive and seeing what works and what you like. On to the actual application then. So assuming your surface is ready to apply the collage and you're not applying collage over any oil-based materials, that's really important. Get your brush and apply the matte medium liberally. So don't skimp. This is really, really important. This is why some people get bubbles because they don't apply enough adhesive. You want to make sure the surface area you're applying the collage is fully covered. Don't be afraid to be very generous with this. Place your collage down and press firmly and then start applying glue on top. So press down either with your fingers, your catalyst tool or an old credit card or whatever you have to hand, going over until there's no bubbles. And keep applying the glue on top after that. So I've mentioned issues with thinner papers. So when I'm using these, I like to wait a few minutes, then press down firmly again, as sometimes bubbles come up after a minute or so. I've not had many issues with thicker papers when it comes to bubbles. Just make sure, like I said, to apply plenty of adhesive and press firmly all over the collage to ensure that it stays flat. And that's basically it. So you can apply layers of collage without having to wait for it to dry. You just need to make sure that you're very liberal with the matte medium or whatever adhesive you're using underneath and on top of each layer, and always smooth things out so there's no hidden bubbles as you're layering. And finally, I mentioned heavy structure gel or modelling paste. I sometimes use this to help embed the collage into the surface so that it blends in more. So I do this by spreading a thin layer of the gel around the collage pieces, kind of softening the edges a bit. So whether you're using the gel or the modelling paste, I recommend building this up in thin layers, as in my experience it does tend to crack if it's too thick. So to add more layers of mixed media, just wait for it to dry. If you're using the matte medium, it dries matte and clear. So I love to add acrylic paint on top, crayons, Posca pens, or more collage. It's really up to you what you decide to use. Hope that helps. Let me know. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.